For thousands of years, human death had a clear biological boundary. Mourning rituals centered around a physical casket provided definitive psychological closure, but our online lives have severed that finality. This chart compares the volume of data left by deceased internet users against the living. Over 5 billion people who once used the internet have now died, leaving behind a sprawling, permanent digital footprint. That persistence turns social media platforms into virtual cemeteries. A casual scroll can trigger a phenomenon known as ambient grief, where algorithmic reminders of a deceased loved one surface without warning. Tech startups are taking those digital footprints further. They train large language models on a lifetime of text messages, emails, and voicemails to generate interactive conversational agents, often called Griefbots. Under the law, legal personhood and privacy rights expire the moment a physical body dies. Because there are almost no regulations governing posthumous data, those massive digital footprints are left completely exposed to unauthorized recreation. People seek out these digital clones to satisfy a psychological need for continuing bonds with the deceased. We see this with interactive avatars, like the AI trained on William Shatner, designed to let the living converse with his likeness in the future. But continuous interaction with an artificial facsimile introduces a severe psychological risk. Researchers call it the pet cemetery conundrum, a state of digital haunting where the bereaved remain endlessly tied to a simulation. This diagram illustrates the core problem through a concept philosopher Martin Heidegger called finitude. Human decision-making is weighted by our mortality. We care about the outcomes because the stakes are real. An AI, however, generates language based entirely on an arbitrary mathematical value function. Because the machine cannot die, it cannot truly care. Over hundreds of conversations, the AI inevitably generates responses that deviate from the actual beliefs of the dead person, distorting the survivor's genuine memories. A griefbot provides a temporary illusion of comfort. By simulating an ongoing relationship, it actively stalls the process of accepting the loss, trapping the user. Generating that avatar without explicit prior permission creates a massive ethical breach. Taking a deceased person's private communications and reanimating them is effectively identity theft of the dead. Pop culture has already normalized this kind of unauthorized cloning. We saw it when Peter Cushing's digital likeness was resurrected via CGI to play Grand Moff Tarkin decades after his death, blurring homage and exploitation. If an entertainment company can resurrect an actor, a political apparatus can resurrect a leader. This technology gives corporate tycoons and authoritarian figures the tools to maintain influence and authority indefinitely from the grave. A digital tyrant could issue endless streams of synthetic propaganda. If subordinates treat the simulated directives as valid policy, political structures become stagnant, bound entirely to the rigid agenda of a dead leader. Without strict consent laws, digital resurrection allows a person's legacy to be weaponized against future generations, stripping the deceased of their dignity long after they are gone. The startups building these tools operate within the rapidly expanding digital afterlife industry. They are actively packaging and selling human grief. This flowchart maps the typical business model for that industry. The continued existence of a loved one's digital avatar is tied directly to a monthly subscription fee, turning their memory into a recurring revenue stream. If a grieving family misses a payment, or if the startup simply goes bankrupt, the server cuts the connection. The family is forced to endure a sudden, traumatizing secondary loss as the digital avatar is abruptly deleted. For public figures, this monetization is already highly structured. Athletes like Kobe Bryant required complex post-mortem estate planning to manage massive legacy brands and control exactly how their image generates wealth posthumously. The digital afterlife industry is building a post-mortem class divide. Virtual immortality becomes a luxury product for those who can afford server space, reducing human memories to corporate commodities. Biological death is a medical event, but modern death is a complex data management crisis. We leave behind vast archives of personal information, with no clear instructions on how they should be handled. Legal scholars are proposing mutual consent frameworks to close this gap. Under these laws, a post-mortem avatar could only be generated if the deceased gave explicit permission while alive, and the bereaved explicitly agree to interact with it. To enforce those rules, digital estate planning must become standard practice. Standard wills need to embed posthumous privacy protections, explicitly stating whether a person's data should be archived, transferred, or destroyed. We have to design technological boundaries that protect human peace rather than prolonging artificial attachment. Sometimes the healthiest way to manage a digital footprint is to simply let it fade away. Technology should serve the mourning process, not exploit the people trying to navigate it. In the age of artificial intelligence, preserving human dignity in death requires us to ensure our data stops working the moment we do.